What is going on, everybody? My name is Greg Peters. You are watching the Car Passion channel, and today I'm going to be putting the entire drivetrain into the Turbo Miata. Now that includes getting the Clutchmaster's clutch and flywheel system installed, as well as the 6-speed, going over how to put a 6-speed into a 5-speed Miata, etc. So, good news is I got my new bearing from Clutchmaster's. Bad news is I went to put it in and it fell right back out again. So my original suspicion was true. The flywheel was machined very slightly too large, 2/1000ths, about half the width of a human hair, but enough so that the bearing didn't fit tight. Luckily, I've got some great friends in the Miata community that informed me about a little something called bearing retaining compound. This stuff right here, specifically Loctite compound number 648, was recommended to me based on the temperature that the flywheel will see. Now, I know it seems a little sketchy, but this stuff's actually designed to fill a gap 3 to 4 times bigger than what I had, and I even contacted Clutchmasters and they said they use it too with great success. So I did install the bearing yesterday because that Loctite does take some time to cure, and I wanted it to be solid, which, as you can see, it's not going anywhere now. In fact, I've been told this bearing will more likely break in half before that Loctite fails and it comes out. So, side note, if you do go to replace your pilot bearing, you will need to heat this up with a torch to soften up the Loctite and then pop it out of there. In case you're wondering what it looks like to put this thing in with bearing retaining compound, here's a little bit of footage that I took yesterday. Now, some of you probably recognize this. It's a stock shifter. The problem being is that it's stock and this is the VVT build, so of course it had to be replaced. So I headed over to Goodwin Racing, picked up a little goodie to replace this. I'll be installing that towards the end of the video. I think you guys will like it a lot. But without further ado, let's get started. For torquing the flywheel bolts, in case you don't have a helping hand, put a ratchet onto the crank pulley, set it to tighten, and then just rest it against the car, and now when you're torquing the flywheel bolts, it'll hold still. So just make sure your flywheel bolts are super clean, and then put a little bit of blue Loctite on each one, and then you just torque them down to 75 foot-pounds. And another thing you want to make sure of is that the friction disc is cleaned with brake cleaner and you don't get any kind of grease on it. Some of you guys at home are just yelling at your computer monitors going, "You forgot the starter plate!" I know, I forgot the starter plate. First, you must install your starter plate. Let's try this again. Now, assembling the twin disc, not really that big of a deal. You have your pressure plate cover. You got that first. Now make sure all these surfaces are very clean before you get started. You got your first disc. Be careful not to touch the pad material. And most of them will have a sticker on it that tells you which way it goes. You'll notice that says pressure plate side. A lot of discs will have this, this lip protruding here, where you see on the other side it's completely flat. Usually the flat side goes towards the flywheel. So just go ahead and drop your first disc on. You drop on the center ring after that. And then your second disc, you see you got a little sticker on there that says flywheel side. Drop that in. And you can take your clutch alignment tool, stick it through like this, and now everything is kind of held in place, making it easier to put onto the flywheel. I recommend having all of your clutch cover bolts Loctited and ready to go before you get started with trying to put this on. Get one of these bolts started and the clutch won't fall on your forehead. It's very important to tighten them down in a pattern and kind of go in stages. Don't just torque one all the way down and then, torque another one all the way down, because you want to apply even pressure to the spring inside the clutch cover. Eventually these will be torqued down to 22 to 24 foot-pounds as recommended by clutch masters. Now that doesn't apply for all clutches and flywheels. Definitely refer to, you know, the manual or the instructions for whichever clutch you're installing. Once it's all torqued down, your clutch alignment tool should be able to easily slide in and out. If it can't easily slide back in, then you're gonna have problems getting your transmission in because this simulates the transmission input shaft. Okay, so how to install a Miata 6-speed into your NA chassis. Now this requires some pretty advanced level wrenching. You know, if you've gone to school for several years, you may be able to accomplish it, but I'm gonna try to teach you how to do it here on the Car Passion channel. All you have to do is remove your speed sensor and replace it with a mechanical speed sensor. That's just a single 10mm bolt. And then you're gonna take your reverse light switch plug, cut it off, and install the bullet connectors from your NA. And that's it. It just bolts in. It's really simple. So this is the electronic speed sensor for use on an NB. And this is the mechanical speed sensor if you have a speedometer cable in your car. This one's actually for a 4.1 diff, and I run it with my 3.9 because that is what made my speedometer most accurate. Hello, darkness, my old friend. The reverse light switch is the one that's directly behind the clutch fork. The one on the other side on the top of the transmission is the neutral switch. So the one we're switching over is the reverse light switch. It's got a plug that looks like that. We're gonna chop that off and add on these bullet connectors. It doesn't matter which wire they go onto. The switch has no polarity. It's just open and closed circuit. Some of these steps I'm kind of breezing over, but it's because I've already done videos on them before, like clutch replacement, shifter rebuild. I got a full video on that too, so I'll throw those down in the link in the description in case you're doing it yourself. I'm just right now trying to show, you know, still show every step of what's going on, but not get into crazy detail for stuff I've already done before. Okay, so we are on day 2. It is now Monday for me. Day 2 of trying to get this transmission in. I tried for about 3 hours last night in the dark on the cold concrete to get that trans in, and it just would not go into the clutch. My entire body just aches from my fingertips to my toes. Those of you that saw my snaps know how frustrated I was with the trans. So I got a new strategy. I talked to a couple of my friends that have twin discs. They said the twin discs are notoriously difficult for getting the trans into. They said even when the alignment tool does slide in, sometimes the discs are not perfectly aligned. So I'm gonna take the clutch off. I'm gonna try a couple new strategies to realign the discs, measure everything, make sure everything fits, and we're gonna try it again. Hopefully my car will have a transmission today. Look what I did to my shirt, bro. I caught it on the jack stand, just destroyed it. It was a rough night. It just wasn't a good night for car wrenching. It was just one of those nights. So hopefully today's gonna be a little better. Okay, so here's my theory. You see the top disc, the black one, and then you got your metal plate in between, and then you got the gold disc in the bottom. The alignment tool is in, which is supposed to keep everything aligned. But look how much I can move the one disc, and the other disc is not even budging. So if these two discs were loaded opposite directions, the transmission shaft, which is a more precise fit than the alignment tool, probably wouldn't go through. So what I'm going to try to do is install the clutch, except I'm going to twist the alignment tool so it will load up both discs in the same direction, and I'm thinking then I will be able to get the trans to go in. Because just looking at the grease marks inside the splines, it looks like the splines of the transmission were only getting through one of the discs, not the second ones. All right, I've got the clutch on the flywheel and all the bolts are just threaded in by hand. Now here's where I think my mistake was. Number one, the alignment tool is in, but it can still move the discs around. So number one, I need to try to actually center the alignment tool better in between the fingers of the clutch. And number two, you can see, kind of, I can twist those discs. So if I twist them both, it will load them up the same way on the tool, then they'll be even, then hopefully the trans will go in. So I'm gonna get this torqued down and we'll give it another try. First off, the alignment tool slides in and out 10 times easier than it did before. So I think I'm on to something. I'm ready to get this trans in. Yeah, we're still out here. It's been, I don't really know how long it's been, but pretty much figured out why the trans is not going in. I know you really can't see anything right now, but I want to show you guys what's going on here. Okay, the pressure plate is on the flywheel, which is off the car, and it's secured lightly by the bolts holding the discs in place. As you can see, the alignment tool goes all the way in. Perfect. In and out like butter. Now, when I go to put the clutch on, we're all good except that shaft is off by maybe a millimeter and I cannot push that clutch on no matter how hard I push. This really is just gonna be a matter of getting both discs perfectly aligned and then the trans should go right in. No problem. So I'm gonna struggle with that for however long it takes, and I'm getting the trans in tonight. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's going in. Usually if I'm having some kind of struggle like this, I won't even show it in the video because it's kind of unique to different cars. It just draws out the video, etc. But I want to show you guys this time, this is a serious struggle. Eventually. Well, what we got there is a mated transmission. It's in, it's bolted in, it's done, it's a done deal. But it's also pretty late, I gotta get up early for work, so tomorrow's gonna be day 3 of the trans install, and I'll pick it back up then. See ya. All right, just to give you guys a little update, we're on day 4 here of the Drivetrain episode. The PPF is installed and torqued down, the drive shaft is installed, the slave cylinder is installed on the trans, and the clutch is bled. It feels pretty savage, can't wait to drive it. The motor mounts are all torqued down, so really the full drivetrain is in place at this point. And I didn't show any of it because it's really just putting bolts in. If you want to get into the details for drivetrain stuff, just check out my clutch replacement video. We got one more thing that I want to show you though that is gonna be awesome. So what I've got here is a MiataRoadster angled shifter kit, and I call it a kit because not only does it come with the shifter itself, it also comes with a turret rebuild, a new turret ceiling plate, a new rubber boot, a Delrin shifter bushing, the riser housing, basically everything you need for the ultimate shifting setup. And once I install it, I'll go over some of the benefits and why I chose this system over the stock setup. My starting point is a completely empty shifter turret. You want to clean it out as much as possible before you start the install. If anyone's wondering, this is a 6-speed from an NB1. The MiataRoadster kit does fit NB1 and NB2 6-speeds. Side note, they also do a 5-speed kit. First, install the wavy washer into the bottom of the turret. I find it's easiest to start the washer on the left side of both of the pins and just pull it into place. Next you have the riser bushing, which has got big slots on one side and small slots on the other. The big slots will face downwards and they sit right on top of the factory pins inside the turret. After that, use the included ARP fastener assembly lubricant and lube up the whole inside of the turret, inside of the bushing, down where the ball of the shifter sits, anything that sees any sort of contact with another part that's moving needs to have this lube on it. And the reason is because now you are not going to be filling this turret with fluid. Everything's going to be lubricated just by the grease. So make sure you do a good job. So like I said, plenty of lube on there. Try to keep the lube off of this surface right here because there's going to be a gasket sitting on there and there's no reason to get lube on it. And you also want to just get down and dirty on that shifter. Plenty of lube, coat it on thick. You're not going to hurt anything. Again, try to keep it off of that gasket. That goes for the riser housing as well. Get some on those pins everywhere. Lube it up. Now way down inside the turret, you'll see the actual shift selector. Your new Delrin shifter bushing is going to be placed into that before you install the shifter itself. So you can just put it on your finger, push it into place. Now the riser housing could go on one of two ways. If you look inside here, you can see the pins are not perfectly centered in the housing. They're a little bit lower on this side. Now where the pin is lowest, that side goes down. And the pins drop right into the small slots in that riser bushing. Once that's in, the shifter itself can go into place. Throw a drop of blue Loctite on each of the included extended bolts. Drop those bolts into your housing and torque them down to 95 inch-pounds. That's inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. And that number, from what I hear, is pretty important. If you over torque it, it will just simply lock your shifter in place. And if you under torque it, you could have play, and that kind of defeats half the purpose of this kit. We got a heat shield to stop the heat from the trans from coming through the portal here. Brand new upper dust boot. And I'm just gonna kind of roughly fit my console over it because it's not gonna be a permanent install yet. And the finishing touch for a little extra street cred, the Tomei shift knob. What I need is a new ball cock shank washer. This thing is getting old and wrinkly. By the way, this right here is the ball cock shank washer that started it all. My new subs are like, what the heck is he talking about? Anyways, let's talk about some of the benefits of the MiataRoadster angled shift kit. First, let's talk about shift knob placement. The knob itself is closer to the steering wheel, which means you can get from the steering wheel to your shifter, get whatever you need to get done, and get back on the steering wheel more quickly. It's also angled to the left, which is a little bit more of a natural angle for your arm. And speaking of that, if you've got the stock shifter position and a bucket seat, you know you're constantly fighting the seat when you're pulling into the downward gears, 2, 4, and 6 if you have a 6-speed. But with the angled and raised position of the shift knob, your arm has a much better angle of attack when you're sitting in a lowered bucket seat that's got aggressive ears. You can see I can pull into the downward gears, no issue at all with clearance of my shoulder. It's a much more comfortable position for the shifter to be in. As far as the throw itself, this is first to second. This is a short shifter kit, but because the shifter itself is actually much taller than stock, the throw distance is about equivalent to stock. But the most awesome part of this thing has got to be how little play it has in each gear and how precise it feels. A stock shifter, as many of you know, has got a decent amount of play even when it's in gear. This thing, look at this. It doesn't even budge, maybe 1 millimeter. It feels so precise going through the gears. There's that 6th gear pull. I cannot wait to shift into 6th in this car for the first time ever. So that is the full drivetrain install for the VVT build. It's an NB1 6-speed, Clutchmaster's FX725 twin disc, MiataRoadster shift kit, and I think it's gonna be awesome. The car does have a 3.9 rear end. A lot of people complain about the gears being too short with the 3.9. I do have a 3.6 ring and pinion on tap ready to go, but I wanna try the 3.9 first because I've got a lot of upgrades in the shifting. It's got the good motor mounts, AWR motor mounts. It's gonna have flat shift set up, so I wanna try it first. I think it's gonna be fine with the 3.9, but I'm gonna try it. We can always go 3.6 if I don't like it. I know this video took forever to come out, and really what happens is I come into the weekend, I tell myself, all right, we're doing a trans install this weekend, film it, edit it, upload it Monday, we're good to go. until we're not good to go and we run into a bunch of problems, and then I just get stuck without a video. So hope you guys enjoyed it anyways. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.
Back from the dead.